Hi, this is your host Satya Bhartia and welcome to TFR Newsroom. And my next guest is Marco Palladino, co-founder and CTO at Kong Incorporated. Before we jump into the show, I would like to thank our sponsors, Linode, who have been sponsoring multiple shows, including TFR Newsroom and Let's Talk. Thank you, Linode. Now, let's go and talk to Marco.
Thank you for having me again.
Right. This week it was a Kong Summit, and your team made a lot of announcements. And they're all focused on cloud connectivity. We have talked about cloud connectivity earlier, but I just want to hammer that point once again. So tell me, what is cloud connectivity, and what is important for DevOps or developers team today?
Well, it's the underlying foundation of every application that we're going to be building. Applications are getting decoupled, but if they are decoupled, then connectivity is how they communicate with each other. That connectivity becomes very important at this point. In the monolithic world, back in the days, we didn't have as much connectivity because everything was running in the same code base. That was the definition of a monolith. And so now connectivity is critical to make sure that our applications can reliably, securely communicate with each other. And in the full stack connectivity, it is not only the one that operates within the services of an application, it's also the one that allows us to then enforce governance at the edge or outside of the application if we want to enable cross-application or mobile communication on our APIs. So connectivity really is a broad use case that includes both the gateway use cases, which the edge and application use case, as well as the service mesh use case.
What other announcements you made at the summit?
Well, we made lots of announcements. So I'll start with the first one. The first one is the Istio gateway. So we added support for Istio as an additional service mesh platform that Kong Gateway supports. This allows us to essentially supercharge Istio's native gateway load balancer and add full life cycle API management on top of that. This gives us control on how we want to expose APIs outside of Istio. And of course, Kong Gateway already supported Kuma, so this essentially introduces support for the second service mesh that Kong Gateway can support. We have announced, when it comes to service mesh, we have announced Kong Mesh 1.5, which is a new release of our enterprise service mesh built on top of Kuma. It ships with Windows support and role-based access control. We've announced Kong Gateway 2.6, which improves the performance of the gateway by 12%, reduces latency by 30%. Performance, of course, is critical. There is much more back and forth that our applications are going to be doing. We announced Kong Gateway 2.6, which improves performance by 12% and reduces latency by 30%. Of course, performance is very critical when it comes to the type of applications that we're building, and with all the back and forth that microservices generate, making sure that Kong is always the fastest gateway, the most performant gateway out there. It is very important. We did announce a new version of the Ingress controller 2.0. So as you can see, there is a lot that went into this summit, lots of product announcements. And the most important part, each one of these announcements is available for streaming. So anybody can go on konghq.com/summit and look at the keynote, look at the product announcements. Lots of customers were part of this Kong Summit. At the keynote, we had the CIO and CTO of NASDAQ, Brad, joining us for a fireside chat, but we also had customers like American Airlines. So it really was a packed event when it comes to product announcements and customers.
I want to go back to some announcement that you made, and one was about the service mesh. You mentioned, Kumo, Istio. There are a lot of other service mesh. So what are your strategies with, service meshes? Are you going to support all of them? Because when I look at Kong, you are trying to help customers. So you want to be with the customers wherever they are in their journey. So talk about, what kind of, strategy you have for service meshes, because there are so many. There is Istio, there is Linkerd, and then of course there are so many others.
Yeah, well, of course, the goal for Kong Gateway, it is to support every service mesh that the customers are adopting. From a gateway standpoint, the gateway makes no assumption as to where the underlying APIs are being hosted. And this has always been part of the philosophy of Kong Gateway. So Kong Gateway supports every cloud, supports Kubernetes, supports VMs, and supports, the major service meshes that our customers want us to support. So we do support Kuma and Kong Mesh. We do support Istio with this new announcement. When it comes to the service mesh evaluation per se, of course, we believe that if anybody is looking for a service mesh and they need to implement a service mesh and they're doing an evaluation right now, so they haven't chosen a service mesh yet, they should probably take a look at what Kong Mesh and Kuma can provide, because it's very compelling compared to the first generation service meshes. It provides built-in multi-cluster distribution, multi-zone. It supports VM out of the box. With the Windows support we just announced, we also support essentially 13 official distributions. It's a service mesh that was engineered for the enterprise architect that must support all of these different environments. Now, whatever service mesh at the end of the day the user decides to use, Kong Gateway is going to be supporting them all when it comes to exposing those APIs and giving some governance on how those APIs are being exposed.
You talked about, first generation service mesh, second generation. There are some new use cases, or I mean, it depends on the environments are also emerging. One very good example is edge use cases, and there are a lot of lightweight Kubernetes that are being used there. What role is service mesh going to play in that space, and what is Kong doing for that? Where is edge in your radar?
Well, so we're looking at three different types of connectivity that every team has to address for. There is the traditional connectivity at the edge for external partners and mobile applications and ecosystems and developers. There is going to be connectivity inside of the organization across different applications. And there's going to be connectivity inside the applications themselves as they get transitioned to microservices. So at the edge, across the apps, and within the apps. Service Mesh provides a smart grid, if we wish, to connect all of this traffic very well within the application. So the last connectivity use case. But it doesn't really give us the right governance in place to be able to determine how we want to expose our APIs, how we want to mirror different users for, with different, let's say, rate limits, how we want to then create an onboarding flow to allow our users to be able to explore and discover these APIs and being able to provision keys so they can consume those APIs. So all of these, which is more in the context of user management and governance on how we want to expose those APIs, these are more traditional API management functions, if you wish. Service Mesh today, they don't give us that governance. That's why API management and service meshes can be used together to provide these full stack for our service connectivity.
Kong Mesh 1.5 also supports Windows, which seems like a big deal. So talk about the support and what does it mean for developer ecosystem or teams?
Well, so we do have an architecture that allowed us since day one to support as many distributions as possible. We used to call Kuma the universal service mesh because it runs everywhere since day one, right? So this was innovation in the service mesh landscape. No other service mesh has been built with this underlying abstraction that allows them to support all of these different environments, right? So Kuma was quite unique in the way it was built. Architecture was built for these kind of use cases. And so adding Windows support essentially allows any architect who has teams working on Windows stacks, .NET engineers, .NET products, and so on and so forth, to be able to add those applications and those microservices as part of the mesh in a Windows zone, which means that we can run the data plane proxy on Windows, but also the remote control plane, the zone control plane on top of Windows. If you remember, Kong Mesh has a primary control plane, the global, and then has as many secondaries as we need, what we call the zone control plane. And so essentially with the Windows support, we support Windows on both the control plane and the data plane proxy. And once it's up and running, workloads that are not running on Windows can start consuming and discovering Windows workloads and vice versa. So we can also mix and match Windows with containers, with Kubernetes, with Linux virtual machines. It's quite exciting, especially if the intended target for this feature is the enterprise architect that must support Windows as one of the additional platforms for the application things.
What plans do you have? We are almost at the end of the year, but what plans do you have next? What are the exciting things that are happening within the company and community?
Well, so we crossed, and in the keynote we mentioned this, we crossed 400 enterprise customers. We're growing quite fast, but these are large organizations, top Fortune 500, top Global 5,000, that are really implementing our technology to change the life of people, to change how finance works, to change how travel works, right? So as a founder, I'm very excited to see how this technology is being used in the real world, right? With these 400 enterprise customers, not only we support them from a product standpoint, but we also support them from a partnership standpoint. We have increased 4x the size of our customer success team over the past 12 months in order to be able to address all the requests for customer enablement, for training, for education. We do have something called Kong Academy, which is our training and learning platform. So we're really building an organization here that is going to be supporting our customers from a product standpoint, from a technology standpoint. And that is the innovation that Kong has created throughout the years, but most importantly, from a partnership standpoint. You see, implementing technologies like Gateway and service meshes, that work never stops. It's a partnership, it's long-term, and we want to support it. Now, when it comes to our products, I'm very excited about all the things that we're doing with Connect. Of course, the technology and service meshes and gateways are downloadable on-premise, so anybody can run a self-managed version of our software. But even more importantly, we launched Connect a year ago. We're seeing lots of adoption on Connect. We are making sure that everything is one click away to give that one-click experience that we are familiar with other products like Datadog or MongoDB Atlas or Elastic Cloud and so on and so forth. So we are making lots of investment into cloud to remove the operations from the equation. We really want our customer to focus on their output. We want them to focus on the applications they're building, and everything else they can partner with us to remove it from the equation.
Excellent. And this is a question you can answer either diplomatically or as bluntly as you can. If I ask today, who is a core competitor of Kong? Who do you see as your competitors?
We compete with many of the first generation API management products that existed since a very long time. Companies like MuleSoft, they have an API management solution. RPG, these are technologies that were born in the first era of API management when mobile became a big trend, right? Back in 2007, 2008, 2009, everybody was scrambling to build mobile applications or to build ecosystems of developers like Facebook API did, like Google API did. And they needed an API management solution at the edge to make that happen. The problem is that those API management solutions are monolithic because they were born in a monolithic world. So when the world changed with containers and with Kubernetes, when we needed a decentralized gateway or a decentralized service mesh that allows us to connect our APIs in a more performant way, in a more lightweight way, in a more extensible way, well, those products were not born for this new world. And that's why we built Kong.
Excellent. Thanks for explaining that. And Marco, as usual, it's always fun to talk to you. And I would love to have you back on the show. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much.